Hi friends, I'm Sayali. I'm one of the co-founders of Crackpo. In today's class, we'll be taking a look at how to crack CAT in 50 days. So we'll basically be answering questions that whether it is possible to crack CAT, how to go about it, etc. So let's get started. So we'll start with the first basic question. Is it possible to crack CAT in 50 days? The short answer is yes, absolutely it is possible. The longer answer is that to do that, you need two things. Firstly, you need to put in consistent effort, and by consistent effort, I mean that you need to put in 3 hours every single day, and I mean every single day. It's you no longer have the luxury of studying 1 or 2 days a week. You have to put in 3 hours every single day, and if you consistently put in that effort from now till CAT, you will be able to crack CAT. So that is what it will take for you to crack CAT in 50 days. You have to be consistent in your efforts, and you have to set aside 3 hours every single day to crack CAT. Those who are working, make sure that you make a specific time during the day where you prepare for CAT. This is extremely important because now you don't have a lot of time to do other things along with CAT. If you are focused in these 50 days, only then will your CAT go well. So make sure that you are able to put in the effort today. Second thing that you would need to crack CAT in 50 days is a plan of attack. So it's one thing to realize, you know what, I have a lot of work to do, and it's another thing to figure out how you're going to do the amount of work that is left. See, if you're starting now with your preparation, you need a plan of attack. There is a lot of portion to cover, there are a lot of things to do, and plus you need loads of practice before the actual CAT exam. So there is a lot of work to do. If you panic and you just run about like a headless chicken, it's not going to do you any good. So you need to have a plan or a schedule. So regarding what you are going to do, how you are going to go about the next 50 days. So essentially you need a schedule for your study. If you have these two things, I believe you can cover all the portion that is there for CAT. You can get ample practice and you can do really well in CAT. Your aim while studying for CAT should be that, you know what, I should do the best with the potential that I have. I believe everybody has the potential to get to 95 percentile at least. So you should always aim that if I do my best on that day, if I study, if I put in the effort, then I will clear and reach 95 percentile threshold. So if you have that kind of mindset that if I work every single day, only then and only then will I reach that target, would you actually do well in CAT? So let's see what kind of strategy you should look for while preparing for CAT. So we have like taken subject wise, and we have taken considered different scenarios. Like if you're just starting out, you're not able to answer a single question, versus somebody who has been putting in some time and effort and has some ability as far as the different sections goes. So if you're starting out now and you're not able to solve a single question in CAT, still you need not panic. There is still a good deal that you can do to do well on the actual exam day. The first place that you should start, if you can't answer a single question, the first 6 topics that you should really look for are time and work, profit and loss, logarithms and surds, averages, ratio, proportions and mixtures, percentages, and simple and compound interest. I'll tell you why I chose these 6 topics. The reason why I chose these 6 topics are these topics require a little bit of effort. There are limited number of formulae, there are limited number of questions that can be asked from this topic, and the questions from this topic are generally easy. And you should expect something like 9 to 12 questions from this topic. If you put in like 2 hours per topic, you will get you should get at least 80% of the questions right from this topic. So you can expect somewhere between 7 to 10 questions right from this topic if you put in some effort today. So what you should do is that the thing is time and work is you should understand that what is the concept of efficiency, how to solve questions where people are working together. That plus some delta information about progressions and series should be enough for you to solve all time and work questions. Now that question can be about people constructing something or a tank filling water or anything of that sort. So it will take you just delta effort and you will get 1 to 2 questions right. Similarly, profit and loss will give you 3 questions, and it requires knowing very basic formulae. What is profit percentage, what is loss, what is mark price. These are just like some 6-7 definitions that you have to learn, and just 2-3 formulas. That is literally 2 hours of effort, and with just 2 hours of effort you can do well in 3 questions in CAT. So you will can easily crack you can easily get up to 3 to 5 questions from these 2 topics alone in 4 hours itself. So these 6 topics essentially are like the low hanging fruit. These are the topics where you can easily put in just a little bit of effort and do considerably well. So they will give you a lot of marks for a little bit of effort. So you should always make sure that these topics you do very well in CAT. Many people will be surprised that I put logarithms and surds, because those who are not good at quant will always leave log questions because they feel, you know what, this looks complicated. But actually logarithms and surds requires you to like remember like 10 formulas as such. And if you remember those 10 formulae, you will find all questions from logs super simple. They are like simple arithmetic if you remember the formulae. And remembering those formulae again takes you like 2 to 3 years. So with just this much effort, you will be assured 2 questions in CAT. So always make sure that you put in that effort. Anybody who is serious about CAT should be able to solve questions from these 6 topics at the very least. They are easy questions. They just require you to put in just some amount of effort, and you would be able to solve questions. Not all topics are like that. Even if you put a lot of effort in probability or PNC, it might just happen that you like miscounting something, or you didn't consider a particular case, or you double counted something. So those things are tricky. Just putting in effort in that place will not always give you positive result. But these topics, they will always give you positive result if you put in some effort. So make sure these 6 topics you like completely smash it out. Mixtures and allegations, you can expect at least one question. Ratio and proportion averages, again one question from percentages, and these questions are like trivially easy. If you spot that question, you should just immediately attempt it. Anybody who has passed 10th standard would be able to answer that question without a doubt. And simple and compound interest, again just simply calculation is required. If you know the formula for simple and compound interest, you know how to solve at least one question in CAT. So if you are starting from nothing, you're just starting your preparation today, these 6 topics should be the place where you start. Get these, put in the effort where you put in 2 hours per topic, and you do really well in these 6 topics, and you'll get like at least 10 questions right in CAT. That would be a big jump up. If like suppose you have put in some effort till now and you are able to answer around 5 questions, so you're not like completely newbie. You can answer some arithmetic questions or some questions from time and work, time, speed, distance, but you're still stuck at the 5 question mark level, which is clearly not enough to do well in CAT. So what should you attempt next? So I feel that these 4 topics, that is geometry, the solid section in geometry, Venn diagrams, quadratic and linear equations, and time, speed, distance are the next kind of up the ladder of difficulty, where if you put in some effort, you will get a lot of marks just by putting some focused effort on these 4 topics as such. The reason why I say that is because you should expect one question from geometry from solids, and there are like say 10 to 12 questions, 10 to 12 formulas to remember there. But if you remember those formulas, that one question is yours. You will easily be able to answer that one question. So it would make your life a lot easier if you remember just 10 to 12 formulas. You will get that 10 to 12 formulas is what, 2 hours of work. In 2 hours of work, you will get a 3+3 marks in quant. That's like a very good yield for your time as such. So given the fact that you have limited time left till CAT, you have to make the right use, optimum use of the time you have. This should be a strategy where you target those kind of subjects which will give you the best return on the time that you have. And these 4 topics, with just like a little bit of effort, you will be able to answer the questions that come from this topic. Now I put Venn diagrams, and some people who struggle with LR find it difficult to answer questions from Venn diagrams. But the thing is, from Venn diagrams, you have 2 types of questions that come. One is the questions where you have to fill in the Venn diagrams and find the missing values. And the second type of question is to find the minimum and maximum overlap. So essentially, you have just 2 types of questions that come from a topic, and you can expect at least 2 questions from this topic. Now, given this, You can get 6 marks if you spend some time solving Venn diagrams question. Learning Venn diagrams concepts will take you like less than half an hour, and practicing will take you another 2 hours or so. In those 2 hours, you can solve a lot of Venn diagrams questions and get some practice in this, and those 2 questions will be yours then. So always make sure that you go through these in the ladder of difficulty where you start from the easiest questions to the harder and harder questions. Don't waste time on the topics that you find super hard. Spend time on topics that will give you 3 marks immediately with a little bit of effort, and these are the topics you should target. The third topic that people generally ignore is quadratic equations and linear equations. But the thing with that is there's a super limited number of questions that can come from quadratic equations or linear equations. The reason for this is that it's like you can't get very creative with that. In quadratic equation, you just have to remember what a determinant is, what are the conditions associated with quadratic equation, when determinant is not negative, when it is positive, when it is 0. That is one thing that you have to remember. The other things that you have to remember about quadratic equation is maxima or minima of the quadratic equation. Two simple concepts. And one more concept about the coefficients of the quadratic equation, the relationship between them, like the product is equal to C by A and sum is equal to minus B by A. Just knowing these 3 concepts, you can get one question right. So super simple, very limited number of questions that can come from quadratic equation. Same with linear equations. It's like if you are able to read a question and translate it into linear equations, you are assured another question from CAT. So make sure that you put in some basic effort. It will take you less than 2 hours to complete these 2 topics, and that will give you another 2 questions in CAT. So these are like very, very easy questions that you should not miss, because these are the kind of questions that respond well to practice. If you put in the effort, you will do well. There are many students who don't put in any effort, and those are the ones who will even falter at these kind of questions. Don't be one of them. You should make sure that you are able to take every single easy to moderate question that is there in CAT. If you waste your time targeting the upper end or the harder question, you will miss out on the fact that there are so many easy questions that you could have done. So basically, if you're stuck around the 5 question level, you should try these. Now the fourth topic I feel is the most important in this set, that is time, speed, distance. So time, speed, distance, time and work you can expect 1 to 2 questions. Time, speed, distance will be 3 questions on their own. So these are 3 questions where you have to remember just like one formula, that is time is equal to distance by speed. That is one thing that you have to remember. Then you have to understand the concept of relative velocity. And apart from this, you have some formulas that are related specifically to boats, to escalators and races. So if you know these 3 things, just these 3 things, each of them, this will take you like half an hour for reviewing basic time, speed, distance. Relative velocity is another half an hour, and boats, escalators, races say maybe 1 hour. So in 2 hours, you would know all the concepts that are needed to solve time, speed, distance questions. A little bit of practice, put in another hour over here, and in 3 hours, you can guarantee yourself 9 marks from in CAT. That's a very, very good return on what the effort you're putting in. So make sure that if you're stuck around this level, that you get all time, speed, distance questions correct. They will be easy. There should be no reason why you don't answer a time, speed, distance question as such. So basic, like simple things that you can do like this will help you a lot in doing well in Quant. So having a strategy, knowing what you should attempt, when you should attempt, will do you a lot of good in CAT. So the next thing is now, okay, suppose you have done all of this and you have now come to like the 12 question level. So you have done the basic arithmetic questions, the time, speed, distance questions, time and work questions, and linear and quadratic equations, the base level questions as such. They are generally the easier questions to solve also. Now that you have done that, now you have come to the 12 question level. This is good, but this is still not enough as such. To get to like 95 percentile and onward, you need like something like 20 to 22 questions that you need to get right. So what should you do next? So basically I've given 2 different sets of recommendations. These are for 2 different types of people. There are some people who are super confident about quant, or comfortable at least in quant, though they might not have spent time preparing quant. If you're very comfortable with quant in the sense that you can solve remainder theorem questions, you find number systems questions super easy, counting is easy for you, counting of cases, counting of favorable cases, so probability is intuitive for you. In all such cases, and if you understand what progressions and series are, if you understand looking at a series, you don't like balk at the idea of finding the sum of the series. If you are comfortable with algebra, if you're comfortable with number systems and the concept of probability, then you should go for the second set of things. But if you're not that kind of a person, if probability is not intuitive to you, if number system scares you and all, if you're that type of person, then go for geometry. I see a lot of students who are who struggle a lot with probability, even if you explain what is the concepts behind probability, what is the favorable case, unfavorable case, I see a lot of students just are not able to get very comfortable in that topic. They're not sure, even when they solve the question correct, they're not sure the question answer that they've gotten is right or not. So for such students, I would recommend that put your time and effort in geometry. The reason why I say geometry is because there are 6 to 8 questions in geometry. Even if you remove the one question for solids, that's 5 to 7 questions still left for you to take. That's on triangles, circles, coordinate geometry, and miscellaneous others. So just like polygons, quadrilaterals, etc. So by just like taking care of a few limited number of subparts, you'll be going after 5 to 7 questions. And the thing with geometry as such is that it responds really well to practice and sustained effort. So if you're like somebody who is scared of quant because you're not very comfortable with number systems, geometry should be your best friend. And the reason why I say that is because what happens often is that many students see geometry questions and they just skip it. Because A, they are not comfortable knowing whether or not they can find the answer given this, or they are visualizing the diagram correctly. Some people feel that, you know what, I can't draw the diagram correctly, and if I don't draw the diagram, I'll be wasting a lot of my time trying to attempt the question. There is another set of people who feel that, you know what, I'm not able to even like think what could be used. To all such people, I say that geometry is actually one of those topics where you have like some equations, some formulas to remember, some types of questions that come. So we have had a very in-depth classroom about geometry as such, where we said, okay, if you get questions on triangles, have this kind of steps where you say, okay, this is on area, this is on perimeter, this is on this. Now what is given, what is asked, what are the different things that you can use. So this is something that you can improve vastly in if you know how to approach it correctly. So what I would suggest to you is, firstly, go and see all the formulas that are there in this topic. You should have a very good handle on the formulas. Secondly, practice. Geometry is like all about practice. You will be able to think of the right theorem for a particular problem only if you have solved like 100 questions in this. And given that there are 5 questions that are up for the take here, at least you should solve at least 200 questions from that topic. So you should put in that much effort. If you solve a lot of questions from geometry, you will do really well in CAT. 5 questions, if you get correct, that's like 15 marks in CAT. So it's completely worth the effort. Put in that effort today. Make geometry your best friend if other quantitative topics are not good for you. The thing is that it requires effort. There's definitely that. It requires a lot of effort. It requires time. But if you put in the time, you will be much better off at the end of it. The second, for those who are very comfortable with number systems, with probability, with progressions and series, do well in that. Progressions and series is 3 questions. Number systems, when I don't mean the harder remainder theorem questions, but the simpler remainder theorem questions. Then you have LCM, HCF. All of these questions, you can expect at least like 2 questions from this. 2 to 3 questions. So this is a very good place for you to start. PNC, probability, another 2 questions. Again, 6 to 8 questions from this topic. If you are very comfortable with this, make sure that you do not miss out on these questions. Make sure you know everything there is to know about the different formulas that are applicable in PNC and probability, those that are applicable in number system, the different remainder theorems, the different types of progressions, how to deal with the different types of progressions. There are limited set of concepts in these three particular topics, but the complexity is slightly harder. So what you would have to actually spend time doing is solving. So like geometry, if you put in time to solve questions from these three topics, you will get 6 to 8 questions right. Similarly, like geometry, you should put in if this is your strength, you should do really well. You are lucky if this is your strength, because there are many students who struggle with these questions. This should be the thing that like pushes you above the rest as such. So put in the effort and make sure that you do really well in these particular topics. Those who are find this a struggle, make sure that geometry, you are acing geometry. If you don't ace geometry and if you are bad at these three topics, you will be in trouble. So you have to ace geometry if you are not good at these three topics as such. Now suppose you have gotten this strategy right and you get another 5 questions right. Now you're getting to around the 17 question level. Now what do? You have to go to like the 22 question level, right? So next what you should do is you should switch. If you're a geometry person, the next few, after you have reached a certain level of competence in geometry and the arithmetic topics and everything below in the ladder of difficulty, now go on to progression series, number systems and PNC and probability. I would suggest that go in this particular order, because progression series is 3 questions. And those 3 questions you can almost, there are like limited formulas. There's one formula for finding the nth term. There's one formula for finding the sum of the series. That like there's AP and GP, so there are 2 types of progressions. So there's 4 basic formulae. Plus there are like certain specific types of problems and like sum of series and all. So with like something like 4-5 hours of effort, you should be able to solve at least one of these 3 questions. Another some more effort, you should be able to solve all 3 questions. So make sure that if you are doing well in geometry, you are coming to the 17 question level, put in the time with progressions and series. Progressions and series is not a hard topic, especially the questions that are coming in CAT recently require you to do just a delta bit more than like the obvious direct straightforward. It's just like a slightly harder, and that can be done with a little bit of practice. So next in your plan of attacks, next should be progressions and series. Next after that, look at these simpler number system questions. So I want you to make sure that you know all the divisibility rules, how to solve divisibility based questions, how to solve simple remainder theorem questions. All the 4 remainder theorems you should be comfortable with. You need them. Even if you feel that remainder theorems questions are not coming in recent CAT, they can come in conjunction with something else. Like they can come in conjunction with like progressions and series or something of that sort. Or like if you are given find the remainder when a series is divided or something of that sort. So always make sure that you at least know the basics of the remainder theorems. The last thing that you should go to, if you are not comfortable with probability, is PNC and probability. The thing with PNC and probability is I feel that many students find the question easy, but that's because it's deceptively easy at times. They don't consider some conditions, they don't consider that they are double counting in certain cases. So I feel that many students actually make a lot of errors in this topic, and accuracy, if you are not good at PNC, accuracy is generally poor. So it's like some people get everything that they do in PNC right, and some people struggle a lot with PNC and accuracy is really terrible. So what I feel in such cases is that you should go to PNC only if you are like slightly comfortable with it, or if you are like very good at everything else, you have finished everything else and now you are like very comfortable with almost all other topics, then come to PNC. Then put in the effort there, because you will have like 2 questions. There will be harder questions, but if you put in like some effort with PNC especially, you will be getting 1 question at least from them. So come here, if you're not comfortable with PNC and probability, if it's not intuitive to you to understand what's a favorable case, what's an unfavorable case, when is arrangement needed, when it is not needed, then come to this part only after you've done other things. There's an exception here. So there are 2 subtopics that are good subtopics as such. That is rank of a word. and derangement. So derangement and rank of a word require you to remember, like rank of a word, you just need to know the approach to solving that question. And if a word comes on rank of a word, you will be able to solve it. There is no trick involved, there is no like messiness, nothing. It's a pretty straightforward type of question. But it's a bit time consuming at times. The second type is derangement. Again, derangement, you just need to remember the formulae. Even better if you remember the derangement of the first 5 numbers, like what is derangement of 5, what is derangement of 4. If you just remember that, it will help you solve one question directly if a question comes from derangement. So in such cases, there is no trick involved or there's no like complexity. The only complexity really is that you should know the formulae. If you know the formulae and if a question on PNC comes on either of these two topics, then you will be able to solve it. The reason why I say derangement and PNC are important at certain points is because what happened last year is that some basic concepts of derangement and PNC came even in LR section. So it's important that you know the formula, you know the concept, but these should be, in as far as quant is concerned, these, if you're not comfortable with it, these should be the last questions that you attempt. Now that you know how to approach quant topics, if you do all of these steps correctly, you should reach somewhere around 22 questions or 22 to 24 questions, and you will be able to clear the cutoffs. Like, you'll be doing really well if you are able to answer those questions correctly. So always make sure that you are increasing your competence in, or your ability to answer questions from quant. The more you learn, the more you practice, the more comfortable you will get with different topics as such. And make sure that you have a plan to get you from like answering 2-3 questions to answering 4 questions, 5 questions, 10 questions, 15 questions to get to the level where you can comfortably clear the CAT threshold. So now that you know how to approach quant, let's take a look at verbal. So verbal, there is like, there are 3 types of questions that come. One is reading comprehension, para-jumbles and para-summary. And I'm not going to give you a whole breakdown on what to do or what to attempt, what not to attempt. Because essentially in verbal, there is like no escaping, no hiding, nothing that you can like put off to later, or nothing that you need to prioritize on. All 3 of these essentially, all 3 of these topics essentially require comprehension skills. Even like para-jumbles, where you have, even if it's like out of context, it's like para-jumbles, para-summary, everything just boils down to the fact that you should be able to read a paragraph and you should be able to understand the main point of it. If you are able to do that, you will be able to answer all the 34 questions that are there in the verbal section. Every single paragraph that you read, if you can understand the main point of the paragraph, you can understand what the author is trying to say, you would do well in all of these questions. In para-jumbles, there are other tricks that you can use. There are other tools in the toolkit, like using pronouns, using connectors, all of these things. But the biggest thing that will help you a lot is understanding what the author is saying. Even in the disjointed sentences, you should be able to get a sense of what the author is trying to say. Similarly, in para-summary, to know what is important, you have to understand what the author is trying to make, what point the author is trying to make. So essentially, this boils down to you being able to read one paragraph, and from that paragraph, you being able to say what is the one line main point of the paragraph. If you can do that, you can answer all the 34 questions correctly. So any paragraph if you read, if you can correctly guess what is the main point of that paragraph, you will do well in all of these questions. Generally, in what we say in reading comprehension is that as you read the passage, you write one line main point of each paragraph you write. That you're reading. Once you have like the 6-7 main points, then you can summarize an overall main point of the passage. So this is like a fundamental building block. Writing the one line main point of a paragraph is the fundamental building block of answering all verbal questions as such. So the way we ask you to go about preparing for verbal is that you should have an idea about how to attempt questions from each of these. You should have practice. But in addition to this practice of like the specific types of questions, seeing different types of RC, seeing different types of para-jumbles, in addition to this practice, what I recommend all my students do is that they should read 5 to 6 paragraphs every day and put these paragraphs into 5 to 6 lines which represent the main point of the paragraphs. So essentially, when you read, you should read the paragraph in entirety, and in a the way you would take notes, rough notes. In that way, you write down one line main point, what the author is trying to say. If you are able to understand the main point of each paragraph, and you are able to say why is the author saying that. So what the author is saying plus why the author is saying that, you will have a very good hold on the passage. You would have a very good hold on what the paragraph is used in the parajumble. You would have a very good hold on the parasummary. So if you are able to say what the author is trying to say, plus why he is saying that, why is he saying this, is he providing context for the main point he is trying to make, is he trying to give a supporting argument, is he trying to give an example, is he trying to give a counter argument. So what is he trying to do? If you are able to understand the what and why of everything that the author has written, you would do really well in verbal as such. Now the question that arises is, what paragraph should I use? Fine, I should use 5 to 6 paragraphs, but I don't have a reading habit and it's too late for me to actually develop a reading habit now. So what should I do? So here I just tell students, on the basis of where you are in terms of your preparation and your ability to solve in verbal. If you are like a newbie to preparing for CAT, you're starting now, start with the easy to read editorials. For example, Indian editorials from the Hindu, Times of India, all of these are very easy to read. They should not stump you even a little bit. You should be able to read each paragraph in one go and understand what the author is trying to say, because they are very direct. They won't be beating about the bush. The reasons for that is that these guys are trying to make sure that they are clearly understood. So clearly understood by a vast section of the population of differing abilities with English. So the English will be simple and they'll be direct in their point. And this is very easy for you, because then you will have some, these are very easy paragraphs to understand what the author is trying to say, and very easy for you to write the main point of each paragraph. So start there. But after you have done that for like a couple of 1 week, 2 weeks, then move on to the harder to read paragraphs. So harder to read paragraphs are like the long form essays that come in places like the New Yorker, or there's a very nice Indian magazine called The Caravan, which writes long form essays. And they are essentially, their English is slightly better than the English that you see in the Hindu, etc. And because they have spent a lot of time thinking about what they are writing, it's not something that they write in a hurry. So because they have spent a lot of time thinking about what they are writing, their points are more evolved, their arguments are better, their logical reasoning is better. So when you read those long form essays, you are able to understand the point better, and that point is like a bit subtler, in the sense that the author will come to it gradually. He'll build a case gradually. He'll give good supporting arguments, because a lot of work has gone into it. When you read the essay, you will be able to have a very good answer about what and why. What is the author trying to say and why he's trying to say it. Because it would not be unintentional or hurried. There will be a very good flow to the passage. So these kind of passages will help you a lot in reading passages essentially where the English is slightly better and the author is taking his time to explain something. So these are very good, moderately hard passages. Now I'll spend 2-3 weeks doing this. After that you come to the hard passages as such. So here I recommend the works of modern philosophers like Bertrand Russell and John Locke. Both of these their works are in public domain. So if you just put on Gutenberg or Google, you will be able to see their works as such, and you can read them. The reason why I recommend these two philosophers is because firstly, they write in extremely readable English. There are many philosophers where you would not be able to make head or tail of what they are saying. This is not the case with these guys. These guys write in a very articulate manner, very simple to read manner. They are like easily understandable. In addition to that, their points are complex. So they are not making a simple point saying that don't do that. They'll make a slightly more complicated point saying that, you know what, this is not good for the society for ABC reasons. So because the level of reasoning is much higher, you get into this kind of ability to understand a more nuanced point as such. So here you will be able to understand what the author is trying to say, where the author is not being direct. So when you have that ability, you will be able to read passages which are from varying kinds of sources, where the author is not directly stating, okay, this is what you should do, or this is what I feel. When the author is not being direct and you still ask what is the central idea, if you have practiced reading such kind of slightly harder text, then you will be able to understand what any author is trying to say essentially. So I would suggest that you try to keep reading more and more complicated stuff as you get used to reading as such. And I'm not asking you to read their entire books. I'm asking you that you read 5 to 6 paragraphs every single day. So put 5 to 6 paragraphs every single day. In addition to that, write these 5 to 6 lines, and that's all that you have to do. In addition to this, obviously go and practice RCs, because nothing makes you able to answer an RC other than having to actually read and answer an RC. But in addition to that, just to get you better at reading, the basic fundamental skill of reading comprehension, to get you better at reading, you need to have this additional reading on the side. Other than the practice of reading comprehension, other than the practice of parajumbles, other than knowing different tools that are there in the toolkit, just do this. This will help you do much better in terms of reading the actual passage in reading comprehension. So now let's come to the last subject, that's DILR. And I know a lot of students actually get completely stumped here. The reason for this is that DILR is getting harder and harder each year. And even when nowadays when I see the DILR while giving CAT, I feel these guys are getting so creative. They are like giving, instead of like normal puzzles, they are giving 2D space LRs. They are giving all of out of the box puzzles as such. And they are trying to be not repetitive, as in like give new things as such. So what I feel in DILRs, essentially the key thing that you have to always remember is that the right way to approach a DILR is to understand how best to represent the information that is given in the DILR. So you have a lot of information that's given in a paragraph form, but that's not very suitable for solving a DILR. If you translate that form, that caselet or table or anything that is essentially given into a suitable form, then you will be able to work with that data much better. So the first thing while approaching DILR is essentially identifying what is the right way to represent this information. So here you have different types of LRs essentially. You have like LRs on picking coins, on arrangement, on 2D space, like a chessboard or something like that. You have so many LRs. What I would suggest is that there are LRs on scheduling, on roots and networks. So for each type of LR, we have tried to put up videos on how to represent that information. In general, what I feel is that if you take the time and think, okay, this is how I should represent the information if a question from roots and networks comes, then you will have a very good idea of how to start the LR. Once you start the LR on the right note, you will find it much easier. If you start the LR on the wrong note, where you started by representing it in a way which is not suitable for answering the questions, you will not get far in your solution. So first thing is how you should represent the information. To get this right, you need to basically attempt many different types of LRs, and you have to have a strategy saying that, okay, if I get a scheduling question, this is how I should represent the information. If I get a question from arrangement, this is how I should represent the information. Once you have done that for enough number of LR types, you will be able to solve 4 to 5 LR sets, and that's a big deal. Second thing is with DI also, what I feel is that many times the information that is given is not suitable for the purpose that you want. So when you see that, when you see the caselet, just go and see what questions are asked, what kind of, have a sense about what kind of format would be good for answering questions. At times for DILR, if you convert it into table format and then you add columns according to what you need, then you will be able to answer the questions that are given. Very easy. It will, now direct DIs are like completely missing nowadays because every DI has a element of LR to it. But the essential crux in even all of these things is that you have to have the right representation of information. So always make sure that you solve a lot of DILRs and you make a conscious effort to understand, okay, this information should be represented in this way. Once you solve enough number of LRs and you know, okay, these kind of caselets, okay, you know, I need to represent in this way, you will do much better at DILR. The second thing is practice. Obviously, you need loads and loads of practice in this. You have to have a lot of experience of different types of DILRs. Only then will you be actually comfortable solving a very new DILR on that day as such. So essentially, practice is key to doing well in this topic. The third thing I realized is that a lot of students, what they do is that they start with a DILR, and 10 minutes into it, they feel that, you know what, I have not been able to answer a single question. And then they panic and then they go to the next LR set. That's actually a bad idea. If you're making some headway into your DILR such that you have found out efficient way to represent information, you have been started filling in the table, or you have started filling in the roots as such. If you have made some headway into the particular DILR, stick with it. Your aim, many students feel, okay, you know what, there are 32 questions, I should do all the 8 LR sets. No, you need to do 5 LR sets. 4 to 5 LR sets done well. If you do all 4, if you get all 4 questions in 4 LR sets proper, you'll clear the threshold of 95 percentile. If you get all questions in 5 sets correctly, you'll do very, very well. So your target in DILR should be that, you know what, I should do 5 sets really well. Don't get flustered, don't get into this headspace that, you know what, this is taking 10 minutes and I have so many other questions to do. You don't have to do all those questions. You don't have to do all 8 sets as such. You have to do 5 sets well. So have a good idea of what you should expect on this day. If you're struggling in DILR, aim even more modestly. Aim to do 4 sets properly. Put in your effort and your concentration into that 4 sets. So make sure that you have your expectations set for the actual CAT day. Don't be flustered, don't overreach, don't be patient. DILR is a game of patience. Anybody can solve the DILR after the CAT exam when they are not in a state of panic. It's the panic and the stress of being under the clock that essentially stops you from solving even pretty simple LR sets as such. So always make sure that you set the right expectations in your mind, give yourself the time to actually solve the DILR and have a strategy ready. Having a strategy ready will calm you a lot in the actual exam. So when you have some idea where to start, you won't get flustered reading a DILR, and that will actually help you a lot. Many students read a DILR set and are completely blank and then they panic. If you have a strategy ready, saying that, okay, if I get an arrangement questions, I'll draw this table. If I get a roots and networks question, I'll draw a network of this way. All of this will help you keep your calm. So have a strategy ready for each type of DILR as such, and practice, just practice, that's it. So this is what I would recommend all students to do in the remaining 50 days to CAT. I know a lot of students are currently panicking, saying that, okay, you know what, there's very little time left for CAT, maybe I won't be able to do it this time. You will be able to do it this time if you put in the effort today. A lot of students wish to do well in CAT, they hope to do well in CAT, they pay money to institutes but don't show up. So all of these students are not really your competition. Your competition is just essentially you. In your head, you should keep it, the target as that you should reach your potential completely. You should make sure that every single day you should turn up for 3 hours and you put in the effort. If you don't do that, it doesn't matter where others are starting off. It doesn't matter how well you did in 10th and 12th. It doesn't matter, any of those things you can't change. How good others are, you can't change. You can only change what you're going to do for the next 50 days. So make sure that you make the commitment today and put in the 3 hours from today onwards. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you start today. Thank you.
Yeah.